Welcome to our Q&A. This is Thursday night, free Q&A, so that you can ask all of your gardening questions. So we're super excited that you're here. Thank you for being here. This is the free Q&A on Thursday nights where we are answering your questions. I'm here every Thursday night except for the Thursday nights when I'm not here. So on some Thursday nights, like Thanksgiving is always on a Thursday night, so I'm not here those nights. But almost every other Thursday night, I will be here. There are about 5 nights through this year on Thursday nights when we won't be here, but that is on the schedule on our website. This live Q&A tonight is brought to you by Survival Garden Seeds, and tonight's subject is about feeding the soil microbes. So here we go. We have an upcoming event happening here at my house, my greenhouse on the Sorensen Ranch where I live. Go to www.georgicrevolution.com for the details. But this is January 27th, so this is coming right up. This is a Saturday, and this is an all-day event during the daylight hours. So pretty much any time, just show up, and you can come see the greenhouse. You can see the soil laboratory, the gardens. Of course, everything's covered with snow now, but it's still fun to see it in the winter time. You can meet me and you can ask me all the questions about what we do at Georgic Revolution. You can ask me about boot camp. You can ask me about the soil laboratory and how to have the best soil in your whole world. You can ask me about the summer class, and you can ask me about all the online education that we do. Most of our business is education. In fact, 99% of it is education. The other 1% is we do produce and sell a little bit of food. Okay, here's the 9 ways that I help people grow food. I've got a YouTube channel, the weekly Q&A, which is what this is tonight. I have a Patreon channel. I'm a laboratory to test your soil to see which plants it will grow. I have the Georgic Schoolroom, which is our summer class. I do 3-day boot camps. Last Thursday, we were not on because I had my winter boot camp. That was a raving, beautiful success. It was so much fun. We had a great group of people here, and they learned all about growing microbes so that you can grow the most nutrient-dense food in the world in your own garden. And we actually built a garden on top of a snowdrift in my yard. It was fantastic. So winter boot camp is always fun. I'm a personal consultant for your garden or your farm, and I just wrote a book called Worry-Free Eating, available on Amazon. And if you're not getting my newsletter, go to www.georgicrevolution.com and get signed up for that newsletter. Okay, I'm doing something special for my students, but everybody is involved in this because I'm going to do it on Thursday nights. So this is a picture of the Georgic Schoolroom library. And this is one of my teachers here. This is Becca. She teaches here at the schoolroom. And so on the Thursday nights that are listed on this page here, from February 22nd until May 16th, we're going to be studying some important classic works about the Georgic tradition, which includes farming, homesteading, personal development, personal relationships, and all the things that make a fantastic citizen of the community and a fantastic member of the family. And so that's what we're going to be talking. Those will be the subjects for these weeks. The reason I'm putting them up here tonight so you can see them is if you want to read the books in advance, then you can, and then we can talk about these as time goes on. All right, so our summer class starts on May 20th. So on May 20th is our summer. That's the day that it starts, and it goes to September 14th. So I have room for quite a few more students. We've had quite a few sign up. So it's exciting to come to this class and to learn. Usually college-age students are the people who come, but I take anybody who's an adult. So anybody age 18 and up is welcome to come. And we do have housing for you here on site, and you can come, you live here on site, you're working with me on the farm, on the ranch, in the greenhouse, in my gardens every day. I teach you how to actually grow enough food to feed your family. That is the goal of this whole thing. And the details of this are on georgicrevolution.com. So let's get on to our main subject here for tonight. Our main subject is feeding soil microbes, and this is going to go fast, and then we'll open it up to Q&A. So feeding soil microbes. There are two food sources for soil microbes. The first food source is the decaying organic material on top of the soil surface. That includes things like wood chips, leaves that fall on the ground from a tree, plants that get smashed down in a snowstorm, manure from animals that poop on the ground, and anything that we add as a gardener. It could be like wood chip mulch, anything like that that we put on the ground. So that's the dead, decaying organic material. That's your first food source for microbes. If you have a bare soil, like a tilled soil, and it's not covered with a decaying organic material, then your microbes are hungry and starving to death. The second food source for the beneficial, active, healthy, happy microbes is the root exudates. So living plants put out sugars, proteins, carbohydrates, fats, and we call these things exudates. And so these exudates go out into the ground, it feeds the microbes. And so you need both of these things. And so how do you actually feed the microbes? Because we're not going to go out there and give them food directly. It's indirectly because they're too little. You can feed a dog, you can feed a sheep, you can feed animals like that, but it's very hard to know where the microbe is. So we just have to cover the ground and keep plants growing in the ground. So that's how you do that. So the carbon source on the soil surface, anything that's made out of carbon will feed microbes. So the more kinds of carbon you have on the soil surface, then the better it is. Now let's be clear. The carbon source and the decaying organic material is the same thing. Like you could put sugar on the ground, like table sugar, and that's a carbon source. It would feed microbes. You could catch a fish from a stream and put it in a blender and grind it up, put it on the soil. That's carbon. It would feed those soil microbes. So there's all kinds of ways to feed them. But the main thing, just do it the easy way by covering your garden with wood chips or composted leaves or something like that. And then you maintain the living plants growing in the soil. So that's how you do that. Now, if you have a growing season like winter and you have months of ice and snow on the ground, will you have living roots? Well, sure. All the trees that are growing, your lawn that's growing, the roots are still alive underneath the soil. So those are living roots. So remember that. But if you have a 500-acre field and you plow it all up in the fall and there's no living plants, pretty much you've killed everything. You don't have a decaying organic material on top because you've tilled it in, and you don't have any living roots because you killed them when you tilled up that field. So we need to maintain the soil with those two sources. Okay, so that was our little reminder tonight of how to feed soil microbes. If you have any questions about that, that's great. Go ahead and you can ask me that, but you can ask any other questions too. So just remember, get your seeds from Survival Garden Seeds. A friend of mine has this company, and he's doing a great job. I've been getting seeds from him and planting them. A lot of the seeds in my greenhouse right now, a lot of the plants were planted from his seeds. They're doing very well, and they're open pollinated. They are heirloom, and so they're really fun to grow these seeds from Survival Garden Seeds. I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and it is now you guys go ahead and push the unmute button and ask your questions. Everybody gets one question, and then we will do more if we have time, which we probably will because we have only got a few people on tonight.
Hey, William, it's Melanie. Hi. Can you hear me? I can't hear you. Just a minute.
Melanie, I can hear you.
There we go.
I could hear
Okay.
you before. I just muted because I was making noise.
Oh, and I couldn't hear you.
All right, go
All
ahead.
right. Well, sometimes there are times when you have, I know we're not supposed to, but there are times when you do have bare ground. And then there are times when you have something growing in your garden, not necessarily something that you plan to eat because it stayed there over winter or whatever. Um, what do we do in cases like that? The bare ground. I know you got to cover it, but
You
how
just
do
do
we
the
get,
best you can. You know,
okay?
that's why one of the main soil health principles is called context. And you've been on enough of these, John and Melanie, that I know you've heard all those principles over and over. But context means that you're going to harvest a crop like potatoes. We dig those up. And when we dig them up, there's a
Yeah.
lot of bare earth that's exposed, especially if we're going to grow enough potatoes that all my community gets them, because I'm going to be using a machine and a tractor. We're going to go out there and we're going to do it in an efficient way so we can actually feed people. And so it creates a lot of bare ground. So was that terrible? Did I ruin everything? No, not really. You just have to understand your context. So as soon as you get the potatoes dug, if at all possible, get it covered again as soon as you can. So a great thing to do would be to have a pile of compost ready to put on top of that soil after digging the potatoes. Or if it's a giant field, then we would just immediately plant a cool weather crop, because you dig potatoes, say the end of August, early September, you still have time in most places in North America to grow a cover crop. So you have that living plant that is hardy over the winter time, so that it will keep that ground covered with a living root in the soil. So we're talking about annual plants in that context, but plants that live in the winter. So that would be things like wheat, rye, oats, barley, and then, and of course, those would be in the grass family. So some others would be some of the hardy things in the legume family, like hairy vetch, or and you could get into a lot of the different clovers. There's annual clovers you could use for that too.
Annual clover is what we need. How long does it take annual clover to grow?
Like a week to come up, and then it's 6 inches high in 4 weeks, 5 weeks.
Wow.
It's pretty fast. It depends on a lot of things. It depends on your moisture in the ground. It depends on the daylight. It depends on the temperature. But pretty quick, if you're planting it the last week of August, right after you planted, or I mean harvested potatoes, it's going to come up quick. But you don't want to plant a perennial if you're going back to a garden next year, because now you have a weed problem. So you need to know what you're planting within context.
Well, I'm thinking of what we can do now. And maybe some other people on the call too are in a situation where,
You mean
yeah,
right
they've
now
got
in
bare ground
January?
now. Yeah, is there anything we can do right now to help our
Yeah,
gardens?
yeah. If you have bare ground right now, spread wood chips, spread compost, spread old rotten detritosphere of any kind, like rotten leaves that maybe weren't composted,
Okay.
but it's good compost material. Get it covered. We just had boot camp and we built a garden on the lawn. I put down 3 layers of cardboard out there so that the grass wouldn't live. It's going to kill it in the springtime. On top of that, we dumped 8 tubs of wood chips on top of that. We were afraid the wind would blow it away, so we grabbed snow shovels and covered it with 6 inches of snow all over the top of it. And now the microbes can go to work underneath that.
Great. Hey, thank you.
You bet. Kathy, do you have a question tonight?
No, I was just thinking, I didn't know that root exudates were so important. I never thought of that.
Yeah, they are vital to a healthy soil. Absolutely.
I have a quick question.
Okay, go ahead.
So I've got about 2 inches of leaves over my whole garden right now. And I'm wondering about snow. I also have about 2 inches of snow over my whole garden. To maximize the biotic stuff happening under my stuff, should I get out there with a broom and sweep the snow off, or does it being on there help?
You want to do the opposite. If you have 2 inches of snow, it's not thick enough to insulate it properly. So you want to go in there, get a snow shovel, and put about a foot of snow on that garden spot. And you don't have a giant garden, I don't think, because I'm familiar with your garden. So just put a foot of snow on, and that will insulate it from getting as cold in the nights. And there's an amazing amount of microbial activity. And when we're talking about microbes in this class, every Thursday night, we'll probably mention a microbe. All like 99% of the time, we only talk about the beneficial ones. Okay. We think of, oh, wash your hands or you'll get sick. That's not what we're talking about. So when we say the microbes, we're saying put a foot of snow on top to keep those microbes alive. Because if it gets too cold, then your ground's going to freeze underneath, and that stops the microbial activity. As it begins to get really cold and freeze, those living active microbes, they're going to go into dormancy. They're going to hibernate. So they're going to sporulate or cystate, depending on what species they are. So they turn into spores or cysts, which is like an egg structure, sort of, except not really. And then when the conditions get right in the springtime, they'll wake up. Well, the best thing is to never let them sporulate or cystate all winter long, and they are creating minerals for your plants. See, all the minerals you need for your plants are in the soils. You know, we have thousands and thousands of soil tests that have been done from everywhere in the world, and 100% of them have all the nutrients that plants need. The problem is we don't have the right combination of beneficial fungus and bacteria to break down those minerals into plant soluble nutrients. And so when people say, oh, I can't grow anything without fertilizer, well, that tells you your microbes are dead. That's the big problem. So get the microbes in there by feeding them. Give microbes a food source and a water source, and then they will come and they'll show up. It may take 10 years for them to show up. That's why in boot camp and my other classes, I teach people how to make a proper compost. And then you are able to introduce the good microbes into the soil. So we inoculate it. And then it's only 3 to 5 years before they're all there and you have a functioning active soil. So this is awesome for home gardeners because this is the way we grow the best food. Because the most nutritious food comes from soil with the largest populations and the largest diversities of the microbes. And then it's awesome for the big food producers with thousands of acres because now they don't have to buy fertilizer anymore, which is the #1 cost of farming right now. And so instead of going out of business, they are becoming profitable. So it doesn't matter what scale you're at in farming, these principles are the same thing. Okay, Kathy, do you have any more questions?
Do you cover mushrooms growing in the yard at some point?
Not
Because
yes. So mushrooms are fungus, and they are one of the most important soil organisms that you will have. So I'm gonna hold my fingers up real quick. So we have bacteria, which is usually the most abundant organism on Earth. And then we have fungus. Bacteria and fungus, those are the 2 microbes that we're actually feeding. So we're feeding those mushrooms when we put these, the living roots, the exudates, and the detritosphere on the ground. Those are the 2 groups that we're feeding. And then the protozoa and the nematodes and the microarthropods, those 3 groups are predators that eat the fungus and the bacteria, and when they eat them, they release nitrogen to help the nitrogen cycle work so that the plants get the nitrogen. And so you have to have
so I shouldn't get rid of them then? I shouldn't
no,
pick them and
if you have mushrooms in your yard, that is fantastic.
oh,
I
okay.
work with farmers all the time, and we say, okay, it's going to be 3 to 5 years to get you to the point where you can walk out in your land and you see mushrooms coming up. When you see that happening, you know you are doing something right. And if you can't find mushrooms in the summertime, something is wrong. So yeah, they're not bad at all. They're fantastic.
Oh,
That's
okay.
an ecological indicator that you are well on the way to soil health, that your soil health is working.
Wonderful. Thank you.
You're welcome. Yeah, so here's the whole mindset. You never want to do anything that kills anything, okay? And that is not the modern mindset of modern farming or modern gardening. You know, when I say farming or gardening, it's all the same thing to me. It's just a different size. Okay, I'm going to give up on my camera. I'm leaving it off because I'm struggling with it. And it's distracting me. But so yeah, you want the mushrooms because they are the mineralizers. They are fantastic to help you have the most nutrient dense food. But we don't want to kill anything. So, I mean, so you have a bug eating your plants, right? That is an ecological indicator that something is wrong in our ecology and there's no predators there to keep them in balance. It's also an indicator that our plants are not as healthy as they should be. So if I go out and I see bugs eating my cabbages, those little green worms, that means that my soil bacteria and soil fungus does not have enough population and enough diversity. So I need to get more compost on that land. Because once your soil is healthy enough, then your cabbages would have enough sugars and proteins that it would become toxic to those little green worms and the green worms won't eat them. The ecological purpose of the pests that eat our gardens is to eat the dead, decaying leaves that fall to the ground. It's the same with aphids. They only eat the leaves that are worn out. So if they're eating the center part that we want to eat, then that tells us that our soil microbes are not where they need to be. So if we're trying to grow some food and our entire garden is infested, that tells us what to do in the future. Like do now, we'll get the benefit in the future. But right now, if we don't want the bugs to eat it all, go ahead and pick them off. There's some, you know, you can put diatomaceous earth on them, which is, it's an organic thing. It's safe to eat. It's not a problem. You know, there's other things that you can do. You can put nets over them to keep the bugs off. You can pick the bugs off by hand. There's things that we can do that are pretty healthy practices, but we don't want to, you know, use poisons because then we're poisoning our food. And that's never a good idea. Okay, John, Melanie, any more questions tonight?
We had a huge amount, I guess, toward the latter part of the summer, was it, John? Of squash bugs. And so that's an indication then. And then I was thinking, William, what about when grasshoppers invade an area? So I'm kind of thinking along the invasion type things. But anyway, there's probably two questions here that I'm asking, so you can answer them separate. But then just following what you're saying about our squash, then that would have been a time for us to add more decayed leaves or whatever to our soil, and then add, well, you tell us, and then add compost, like you say, right?
Yeah, so Ezekiel had really great success last year with his squash bugs because he grew his squash in a bed of basil. He had hundreds of basil plants growing in there. He never saw a squash bug. So we'll see what happens this next year. But you always want to have 4 plant families growing close enough that the roots are touching. Remember that. I know you've heard that before, but that's the answer. So where you have your squash bugs attacking winter squashes, summer squashes, cucumbers, pumpkins, all the things that they attack, then you need to be having a bunch of other plants around those so that you turn on the secondary metabolites in the genetics of those plants so that they can help to fight off the squash bugs. The thing I said about sugars and proteins, pretty low levels of sugar will kill like aphids. Higher levels of sugar to kill other pests, but it takes a maximum amount of sugar to kill grasshoppers. Grasshoppers will tolerate the most amount of sugars and proteins. But I've seen some organic farms that I've been to before and all the neighbors were infested with grasshoppers. And you couldn't find a grasshopper when you went to the fence line and the grasshopper's eating it on the one side, on the other side, they're not eating it. And it's because the secondary metabolites are turned on in the plants. And it is the easiest thing for humans to manage that. But they don't teach this in the universities, and it's so
No.
frustrating. I mean, they need to be, but they're just not.
So I just want to be clear on that again. You need more sugars to combat the grasshoppers. Did I get that right?
Yeah,
Okay.
and I'm just talking about the natural sugars and proteins
Yes.
that are in the plant material. So the way that you get that is by feeding your microbes, lots of compost and lots of living plants, and a minimum of 4 plant families. And when I say a minimum, you probably better plant 6 plant families if possible.
Okay.
So a shade tree on the side of the garden, its roots are going in there. You can count that in your plant family if your roots are in your garden. So, so that can be added
Good to
in.
know.
So a great garden to get rid of this. So you could plant like corn, green beans, squashes, basil, and let's throw in another one. Nasturtiums.
Oh.
There, that would be 4 plant families. It's a fun garden. If you like to eat
Green
culinary
beans.
herbs, throw in some sage and basil and thyme, rosemary. Those types of things are different plants. I think probably all those are in a different family. A couple of them could be in the same family. I don't have it all memorized, but all you have to do, just go to Google and type in what plant family is basil in, and it'll pop right up and it'll tell you.
Okay.
Okay, that was a fun session.
I have a question about.
Okay, John's burning up. I'll take one more
No.
question from John.
I just wanted to know. I think it probably benefit us to test our soil this next year.
This
Yeah,
spring.
yeah.
Spring. When do we do it?
When is the best time? Yeah.
No, about the time you plant. So around
Okay.
maybe the last week of April, dig a soil sample and send it to me. Are you wanting me to do it, or are you just thinking of a nutrient?
No, we were thinking you
Wait,
do it.
And what is that cost again?
It's,
William?
it's a soil test is $150, and I'm testing for the active living microbes in your soil, so you know where your soil health is. If you want to do a nutrient test to just see which nutrients are available, then universities will do that. They're like $20 or something.
Okay. So we would go around to each garden bed or something, and how many samples would we send you then?
Well, it depends what you want to know. So if you want to know what each garden bed is doing, then you would pull 3 plugs from one bed, and that's a sample. If you want to
Okay.
average your entire yard, then just pull a plug from each garden bed, and then that averages all your beds together. So it depends what you want to know. So if you have a bed that's doing fantastic, you probably don't need a soil test. But if you have a bed that's doing mediocre and then a bed that won't grow anything, you would want to have those 2 beds be different, like different tests, because then I could tell you why your soil is dead in the
Okay.
one that's not growing, and why your other one is mediocre, and then what to do about it.
Right. Good.
Is it too late to put leaves on now?
No, but in the winter we get a lot of wind, so if you put leaves on, just cover them with snow, or you need to get them wet, put them in a trash can, let them soak overnight, and then scoop them out with a pitchfork so that they don't blow away. If the dry leaves are going to blow away and it didn't do you any good, and it blows into your neighbor's yard, because I know you have neighbors, and then they're mad at you. So
Right.
avoid those types of relationships.
Okay.
Well, thank you.
It's awesome. Good
Okay,
class.
well, I will be back next week. It will be the same link, same time, same place. Good night, everyone. Hopefully this has helped you to have the best garden of your entire life.